This is my oldest son's duck. Her name is Queenie. You say hi, Queenie? Yeah. She is so sweet. She just curls up on you and just tucks her head in. Huh, you're a good girl. She's calling the boys over. All right, guys, let's go in and make a chicken casserole. I don't want to say it too loud. Well, you know. Alright, let's go make some food. Hey y'all, welcome to Cooking on the Farm. We are gonna make a chicken and rice casserole with a gooey gravy. Come on in and let's get started. Alright guys, so for this casserole you're gonna need 1.5 pounds of chicken. I'm actually doing a double batch, so this is 3 pounds of chicken. 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, a full teaspoon of your favorite seasoning salt. And you'll need 4 cups of cooked rice. And you can see in the description below the link to how I make rice. For the gravy part of our recipe, we'll need 1 quart or 4 cups of chicken stock and 1/2 cup of flour. I did forget to mention, I'm a weirdo, just ask anyone that knows me, I have little quirks. So I like to season both sides of my meat with salt. So I'm just gonna take a 3-finger pinch, kind of run it across there, then I'm gonna start putting my chicken in. I didn't count that 3-finger pinch in my measurement. So my 3-finger pinch is about 1/4 teaspoon, if you wanted to know. All right, I'm gonna glove up one hand. I finally stopped biting my nails, and I find one problem I have, I get meat and gunk under my nails. So I'm just gonna put these down. These do not have skin on them, so put whatever side down you want. If these had skin, I would put skin side up so that when it's cooking, the fat's kind of melting down and helping the meat add flavor. So I'm snugging these in here pretty tight because I'm not worrying about getting color on them. I'm just worried about them getting cooked. I do have my oven at 350 degrees and it is all preheated and ready to go. All right, I got all this in here. I'm gonna get cleaned up and I'll see you in a second. All right guys, so I'm just gonna add my ingredients. Remember, I'm doing a double batch, so I am doing a little bit more. I love garlic. Love it, love it, love it. I'm running out. I need to go back to the store. And you know me, I love some pepper. All right, we're gonna run this over to a 350-degree oven, and after about a half hour, I'm gonna flip everything over and check for doneness. All right, half hour and we'll check it. All right, my timer went off. Let's pull this out and flip everything around. All right, so I'm just gonna flip stuff around. It doesn't feel quite done. It feels pretty raw still. It's got a rubbery texture still. Woo! Careful, this is hot. It is boiling. So all the juice that's in here is gonna go into our gravy for our casserole. All right, let's put this back in the oven for another 15 minutes. All right, guys, I am going to make some gravy. So I have a stick of butter here. Remember, I'm making a double batch. I'm gonna get this guy melted up. I'm gonna grab a 1/2 cup of flour. You want equal parts of flour and butter to make a roux. A roux is the start of a sauce, okay? Gravy is a form of sauce. So if you wanted to make a like a cheese sauce, you'd start with a roux. Butter and flour make a roux, and then you add ingredients to there to make other sauces. So let's get this guy melting and we'll be right back. All right, so my butter is melted. I'm going to add a half a cup, give or take a touch of flour. Get this stirring around. It will absorb all that butter. And it kind of makes a thick paste. Okay, once all the flour is combined, you just kind of let it sit and bubble. And you kind of, for those of you who have long hair, tie it back. You want to kind of lean over and kind of let it smell it, okay? Because you want to smell for, like, when you open a fresh bag of nuts, that smell, that nuttiness, that's the smell that you're looking for. I'm gonna open my quart jar of stock that I have. This is bone broth that I made last year. All right, so when you pour liquid into fat, it has a tendency to spit. So kind of step back a little bit, pour slowly, make sure there's not kids in the room. All right, here we go. So I'm gonna pour about a cup and a half in, get that stirred in. There we go. And see how it's already thickening up? Then dump your rest in. And now you're gonna go, oh no, it's too thin, it's too thin. It's okay. Don't get upset yet. That flour will start absorbing and it will start thickening. There's chunks, keep stirring. As it starts to boil, those chunks will dissipate and, yep. All right, so I'm gonna stir this until I get all the chunks out, then I'm gonna add some seasonings. All right, I'm gonna turn this up a little bit so we can get it starting to boil. I'm gonna add, now this also depends on how much salt is in your chicken, how much salt you put in your rice. So I kind of taste it, but I'm gonna start with a half a teaspoon of salt, kind of a scant half teaspoon. And about, I don't know, 8 to 10 cracks of black pepper. I love black pepper, so, you know. And I love this buttery, it's a steak sauce, or it's a steak rub. If they made this in a, like a sauce, ooh, I am sold. I am gonna do a full teaspoon of this. I put this on chicken, it says for steak, but I'm a rebel. Oh, watch out. I'll put it on steak. I think my mom's put it on fish and said it was really good on fish too. All right, so then I'm just gonna stir this up. So with gravy, it'll be super liquidy on top, but on the bottom, it starts to thicken. So you wanna make sure you keep it moving every few minutes. Like you can go, you know, to run to the restroom or check on something in the oven, stir something here, but don't go get on the phone unless you're gonna sit here on the phone. Don't go too far. You wanna stir it about every 5 minutes or so, or less. Depends on how high you have the heat. So you can already see it's starting to thicken up. Now, depending on how thick you want your gravy, you can keep cooking it until it gets super, super, super thick and it blobs off. Or if you want to keep it thinner, don't cook it quite as long. Like I said, it's your taste. If you don't like as much pepper, don't put as much pepper. If you don't like the salt, don't add the salt. If you don't like the seasoning salt, don't add the seasoning salt. I give you a base, you make it your own. So my gravy is done for what I want, the texture that I want. So this is pretty thin still, and it's still in the stove, it's off, but it's gonna still continue to cook. okay? Because I am putting this in a casserole, I want it to kind of meld the rice and the chicken all together and kind of wrap around everything. All right, guys, so this chicken is super hot. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull out a few pieces of the chicken at a time and kind of drain the juice off them a little bit. And I'm keeping those juices, just saying. If you're not making gravy, when it cools, put it in a zippy bag or a jar or a Tupperware, put it in the freezer, save it for gravy whenever you need gravy. I am dumping my 2 cups of rice, which is now about 4 cups of cooked rice now, in this casserole dish. So this is a 9x13 pan. If you wanted to do this in foil or whatever, whichever one you want. I'm gonna flatten this out, nice even layer. I actually have one that I made earlier over by my stove because like I said, I'm doing a double batch. This one is dinner tonight because it's hot. The other one is cold. So that one's gonna go in my freezer when the meat cools. All right, guys, so as you can see, I've got casserole for rice here, casserole for rice here. So I am just gonna keep cutting meat and putting these in. All this leftover meat juice, okay, you can do several things. You can throw it in a container, throw it in the freezer, save it for soups or stews, gravies. I'm gonna use it in my gravy now. So that is adding quite a bit of extra liquid. So I'm gonna turn my heat back on, bring it to a boil, and have it thicken up just a little bit. This is a little bit thin for throwing into my casserole. Now don't be tempted because my husband's like, oh, just add more flour. He doesn't cook. Don't add more flour because one, it'll be super lumpy. 2, it'll have kind of a raw flavor taste and it's not a good flavor. Some people add cornstarch. That's cool. You could do that if you want. We don't use cornstarch. We have a son that's very allergic to corn. So what you do is just let it keep boiling. Let it reduce. All these vapors is liquid. That's all going, which is thickening. So be patient and just let it thicken up. We're getting close. We're getting close. All right, guys, like I said, we're making 2 casseroles. One for tonight, one for my freezer. I love, like I said, batch cooking. You're already cooking anyway, stick one in the freezer. I have also made some asparagus, which I have a link to up here and down there. So my people, my family, they do not like the same meal over and over and over. So since I'm making 2, asparagus is with this one. This one is going to have broccoli, and I'm just gonna throw the broccoli on here, okay? We're gonna put the gravy on, then when the kids get their food, it's all mixed together. So I'm just gonna sprinkle this over in an even layer. All right, so this is just frozen broccoli. It's slightly thawed, but it's going back in the freezer, so it doesn't matter. So now I'm just gonna add gravy to both of these, and dinner is served, and this one's gonna cool probably for about 10-15 minutes, and then I'll throw it in the oven. You just don't wanna put boiling hot gravy in a glass container and throw it in the freezer because that's just not gonna be good. And you want to cover this thing with gravy. You don't want pockets that don't have gravy in them. You just want to make sure your rice is covered in gravy. And if you wanted to just make your chicken, chop it up, and instead of put it in here, you can do that too. But because I was separating it between 2 different pots, I wanted to make sure everybody got, or both pans got the same amount of chicken in them. All right, guys, let's dig into this. Sorry, my kids are already eating. This is so good. The rice still has a chew. The chicken is so nice and tender. The gravy just ties it all together. I've already been eating the asparagus, super delicious also. So crunchy. All right, guys. I'll talk to you next time from Cooking on the Farm. Have a good night. That's not recording.
It's not?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Like I said, I'm making 2 casseroles. This one's tonight. We're having... I've already been eating the broccoli because it's... I've already been eating the cauliflower because it's...
That'd be asparagus.
I've already been eating...